You're listening to Tipped Off, where leaders across the service industry share insights on operations, tech, and team success, powered by TipHaus.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tipped Off. I am your host here, Kirk Grogan, and I am incredibly honored today to have a conference friend, a restaurant expert, Alex Clark, joining us. Alex, you're bringing over 20 years of financial leadership experience. You've been in restaurant franchising, you've been in finance, you've been on the operations side. Can you walk us through your career journey and what ultimately led to today, you at Big Biscuit, but what does your career look like and how did you end up here on the podcast with me?
Well, how I ended up on the podcast with you, different story, but let's just chat about let's talk career, shall we? I went into finance because it seemed to be the natural progression for who I am and how I enjoy interacting with the information and money. I love money. I'm just going to be honest, I love money. So let's start there. Yes. So I ended up joining a franchise organization just before the subprime meltdown. We were in residential real estate appraisal franchising. If you can do that, you can franchise anything. So that's where I really got my feet wet with franchising. At the time, we were using a UFOC, and then we switched to the FDD. So I had the opportunity to develop the new document, and then really have to understand all of the things about franchising that are so regulatorily sort of overseen. I went from there to a company. Well, I kind of went off on my own, if I'm being honest. And during that time, I did a project for a gal who was in the accounting space for restaurants. And I did this project for her. She ended up bringing me on, and I became the COO of that company. And so we worked with, that was Good Sense. I worked with a number of different Good Sense owners, but we also were doing books for the Jefferson's restaurants because we had some common ownership there. So I ended up going over to Jefferson's and working for them in-house and did that for several years. And then got the opportunity to come here to the Big Biscuit. I had gone to a ladies' luncheon, met the VP of growth here at the Big Biscuit, and just kind of did some like a consulting networking gig for them. And it ended up developing into the opportunity to join them as their vice president of finance. And it's just, every single one of these moves has really been about creating relationships and then having opportunities open up that you just slot perfectly into at the right time in the right space. So I would say I've been lucky, but I think I've also been intentional.
Creating your own luck with it, right? Making sure, and I think the key word there, building that network. Obviously, my experience with you is very outgoing, very intelligent, very personable. And even if you don't have those skills, I think fake those skills if you can, because the relationship really does become everything, right?
It is. And, accountants are known for our personable, outgoing.
That's what I think of when I think of accounting.
Winning personalities.
I love it. And something you touched on there, Alex, was the operation side of things. You kind of got into the restaurants on the operation side. I think super important for people in restaurants to see multiple areas of it, right? If you're locked into just one area, you kind of miss some of the magic that is the hospitality industry, for better, for worse, whatever we want to call it. But tell me, what does it look like? What changed your views? I mean, you've been in finance, of course, before, but when you got to see the operation side, how did that help you shift from a financial mindset as you went back towards the finance side? Was any of that hands-on experience relevant? Did any of that influence your decision-making as you started to look at restaurants again from a financial lens?
I think that the thing about being really invested in the operations of anything that you're doing from a finance perspective is allowing you to see the reality of where the numbers come from and how they're generated. Because numbers aren't just this magical thing that pop up, right? There's something that is it's the product of what you're doing every day in the restaurant. So for me as a finance professional in the restaurant industry, it gives me the ability to not just say your food cost is too high, your labor isn't within the guardrails that we've set, but instead it's talking about like, are you monitoring your waste? Are you pre-bagging your sides? Are you cutting when it's time to cut shifts? How quickly are you getting your employees out of the building and off the clock after you've cut? So, talking about Like, how are you ordering? How much money is sitting on your shelves in inventory versus how much of the capital are we deploying for right now in our operations? Because you always have a resource limitation, whether it's the money, the labor, the seating capacity. There are constraints that you have to learn to work in. And as a finance individual, when I'm trying to guide somebody or help them understand how to become more profitable or maximize that opportunity, I need to really understand what are their options? What are the things, what are the pitfalls? What are the ways we can improve? And how do people in the restaurant run their day-to-day lives? What are the things they're being challenged against? I think way too many times in the finance, we love that theoretical space. Oh, it's a debit, it's a credit. But that's not the real world. We don't live in this theoretical, like, we're always going to make every plate to spec. It's going to look just like the spec book. It's going to be costed just the way the costing, like there's things called subs. You run a sub in, and all of a sudden that item's price has changed, maybe just marginally, but it's changed. And what impact does that have on your overall performance? And then how can you mitigate that? And, what are the strategies around that? So, really understanding how everything in the restaurant works allows me to look at a set of financials and understand what happened in the restaurant.
I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is perfect. I think because you mentioned it, I think, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. Looking at Excel sheets, right? We forget that those numbers are the result, right? It's not the end all be all. It's not even the cause of it. Like that is the result of actions that are being taken, of hard earned money being spent by customers at your restaurant. And it's
100%.
really, really easy, to say, oh, well, we need to pinch pennies here. We need to do this. And from an operational standpoint, you say, well, screw the pennies. There's dollars to be saved if we adjust here, right? Like, let's look at what we can do on this front. And it makes it I love the rational, real side of it. So A plus, I think everyone in finance, spend a little bit of time with your operations team and see what
100%.
it
100%.
you got to see what it looks like. Tell me, so you had a chance with Big Biscuit to be consulting, just work with them on the outside, spend some time with them, help them out where is needed. But you jumped in fully, it sounds like, with it. And so
Mm.
what led you to say, hey, instead of staying and enjoying and just helping you on the side, I actually want to immerse myself in this culture. I want to really be involved with it. What was it about them, their franchise side, their culture that attracted you to actually full-time jump in?
You get kind of a feel for people when you have an opportunity to really start talking to them about the reality of their situations.
Mhm.
What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What does their culture look like? How do they collaborate? How do they make decisions? And I was really impressed with the way that, every conversation I had included all three of the executives, the CEO and the two vice presidents at the time. They, I didn't have channeled or siloed conversations. We talked through it. We gave every bit of vision from every perspective, which I was once told by a boss when I was young and very arrogant. I know that's hard to believe about me, but I'll let you know
Never,
that there was a
never.
time. Um, he said that many mediocre minds will always come to a better decision than one brilliant one.
Mm,
And I didn't understand how that could possibly be true. But then as you go through life and business and all of the things that come at you, you realize that perspective and smaller pieces of knowledge, even if they're not like, oh, I'm curing cancer, but just any even anecdotal contributions allow you to see a problem or an issue from every perspective. So I loved the collaborative approach, but I also really loved the commitment that they have to their culture, to what the Big Biscuit is. They're not trying to be a trendy breakfast place. They are trying to say, you come here, you're going to have the all American breakfast experience. It's going to be comfortable. You're going to be greeted by probably the same server that greeted you last weekend.
sure.
Um, and really understanding what their concept is, and then they have such confidence around that. This is what we've decided it is. We're not going to like, oh, should we go this direction? Oh, should we? It's not this constant like changing of the wind or well, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like we look at our decisions, we make them thoughtfully, we make them collaboratively, and we make sure that they are in line with all of the previous decisions and all the decisions we're going to make in the future, which is who are we, who do we want to be, and what is our focus, which generally is making sure that the guests, our partners, and our team always have a positive experience when they interact with the Big Biscuit. Like that's our mission, vision, value statement. And I think that it's not just something that we're putting on the walls in the restaurants. I think it's something that we're living. And I mean, that's not always easy. Sometimes you kind of have to struggle and you have to bite your tongue and you have to look weird and screw up your face. But in the end, it's making sure that we're all on the same path, going the same direction with the same goals, the same priorities, and the same commitment. And that's what I loved. Now, there is a small other thing that I love, and that is I am a morning person. And we start our day at 7 o'clock and we are done with our day around 3:30. So we can still go do things like in the rest of the business world, have a doctor's appointment, run to the bank, pick up our dry cleaning, and not feeling like we never have time to live our lives. I don't have to pack everything personal into my weekend because I have a really great work-life balance.
That's
And you
awesome.
can't there's no amount of money
Yep.
when you
Yep.
get to be, my age. I'm a grandma. That like that is so important to me
Sure.
now. And so, yeah, I really love that part.
I mean, it sounds like you really love it. I don't think you
I
can fake that
do.
enthusiasm. And I mean, I love the mediocre mind comment, and I couldn't agree more. It's perspective, right? I mean, you
It
take
is.
one genius 40-year-old, four mediocre 40-years. That's 160 years of experience. They've seen different things. They've lived it. They've embraced it. And a particularly industry like this, where you're serving, it's not one multi-million-dollar customer that makes your day. It's pleasing hundreds of guests time and time again over the course of your career as a restaurant operator. So I love that piece, and good on you for making the jump. Then that sounds like an incredible spot with it.
Oh, thank you.
I want to switch gears slightly to it, but tell me, you've obviously had a very impressive career in finance and leadership, and something particularly in an industry that hasn't always given women the opportunity there for senior leadership. What challenges did you face early on? I mean, you're talking right before the subprime crisis in 2008. Got into the space on items, and how did you overcome these? What does it look like? How did you push through that?
It gets really, really tricky when we start talking about gender in business, and the challenges related to that. And I think that you can really alienate people when you start talking
Sure.
about that. And I think it's really important to understand how the words that you say land with other people, even if it really is your truth. I will say I came into business at a very in retrospect, it was a time of great change for women. If a woman became a CEO in a Fortune 500, that was huge news. It was on the ticker, like it was a big thing. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that yeah, it probably still is. And I think that leadership positions really are still held primarily by men. So I was quite a bit younger than I am now. Your introduction sort of tells us that.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
I think I was just really naive, and I think I was lucky to be naive. I really believed
I
that
love
if
that.
I just worked hard and did a good job, that I would naturally succeed. I would naturally be able to follow whatever path I wanted. And I came to learn that in the right environment, that is absolutely true. But in some of what I would call the more traditional environments, I was going to continue to struggle. I could work and be great at my job, but wouldn't necessarily be seen as leadership material.
Sure.
So I started to be really mindful about the roles that I took and the people that I worked with. I found a lot of women mentors who not just not showing me just finance, like how to do a really great set of work papers, because that's a thing, but more, how to read a room, how to phrase things in a way where if you just kind of say it off the cuff, no filter, everyone in the room is going to look at you and think, uh, whereas you can find a way to verbalize those things in a way that lands really well with the people in the room. The next thing that I did, and I don't know if everyone is up for this,
Mhm.
but it was really important to me. And that is that I very clearly communicated the expectations for myself in that I wouldn't accept different rules a different pay structure or different expectations just because I was a woman. If there wasn't going to be an opportunity for me to be viewed equally among my male counterparts, I just simply wasn't interested.
Sure.
And I think that didn't always behoove me. It was not like, oh, well then here, let us take you into the special VIP space. Sometimes it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't the right opportunity for you. But I'm okay with that. Because once I did find the right places, I invested, I observed, and then I took all the things that I learned to the next big opportunity. And I think that, when you've not found the right path because you stay on that same path. Even if you choose a different path, you're going to end up sort of making those lateral moves. And when you're making a lot of lateral moves, the underlying current there is you haven't found the tools that you need to get you to that next step. So being really honest with yourself and really taking self inventory and understanding like what is important to you. I think that was a huge tool for me because the inventory is long and not always positive. Um, so, I think in my early days, I would have been labeled as doesn't play well with others. So, there was a lot of, I really just, I had to kind of have one of those like come to Jesus with myself and say, what are your priorities? In some cases, these are mutually exclusive options,
Sure.
So that's kind of a long answer.
No, great
But
answer.
again, it's a touchy subject even still
Oh,
today,
absolutely.
you
And it's something, I mean, I almost feel like we feel like we've broken the glass ceiling. And so now it's kind of fallen out of favor. But, we mentioned Fortune 500 is what, maybe 15% women in CEO spots, maybe. And so when you look at it, I think it's a conversation to keep rolling with it. And so I love what you mentioned there. I mean, the idea, the mentorship, particularly of not just teaching you how to be good at your job, but teaching you how to be good at all the extracurriculars around a job that make up the corporate world, right? How you manage to socialize, who you surround yourself with, how you enter rooms, how you read rooms. I think fabulous knowledge. And anyone listening that is looking to overcome something, the greatest myth is just be fabulous at your job and you will rise to the top, right? Just be fabulous at the roles that are listed, the job description that you saw online. If I just nail every one of these, I will run the company. And no, you won't.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. No, you won't. If you could boil down, one thing that you mentioned there, Alex, any young women, any people in positions that are not traditionally in power or feel that they don't have the opportunity to rise, what is one piece of advice that you would give to them? Moving into leadership roles, moving within leadership roles, hoping to jump around in leadership roles, anything of that nature. It can be around restaurant ops, finance, franchising, or it can be broader if you want to take it there as well.
I kind of touched on it in that last sort of long-winded answer, and that was really knowing yourself and understanding how your strengths and weaknesses can be played up or down to your advantage. One of the things that I had a really interesting conversation just yesterday about a study that showed that of men who received raises after a review, the word aggressive appeared as a positive trait. And for women who did not receive raises after reviews, aggressive was a negative trait.
Sure.
So if you, as a female, are an aggressive pursuer of results and success, understanding how your approach is going to land and, learning again how to position yourself in either a team or in the room to understand, how you don't need to be less aggressive because if you are less aggressive and you don't meet your goals or the
Absolutely.
results, you're going nowhere. But it's how does that land? Use some different words that sound opportunities for improvement instead of mistakes. Like that's just it. It just is what it is. And so understanding those subtleties are very, very big in the workplace.
Oh, I love it. I could not agree more. And there's the world, we mentioned earlier with the accounting hypotheticals in the world we live in. This is the world we live in too, right? We can pretend that we want the perfect hypotheticals and not pretend. We do want that, but we also need to give practical advice to actually advance, right? I mean, it does us no good to pretend that just being able to be perfect, because I agree, and I've seen the similar studies that aggression in men, yay, aggression in women, ooh, it's like, all right, what are we doing
Yeah, there's
here?
lots of other words for an aggressive
Yeah,
woman. I
of
don't
course.
know any other words for an aggressive man except winner,
There you go. Yeah, champion. Exactly that. If we wanted to talk franchising just a minute, and I do with you, lots of restaurants, obviously, it's a very popular model in the restaurant space. Lots of people have dreams of being able to do it. It sounds amazing as an operator. You did the work to get a few locations up. Let someone else take care of the bulk of the
Oh,
lift
yeah.
now. What, however, are those financial mistakes that you see operators commonly make, whether you're the individual allowing a franchise to come out of your brand, or you're the first franchise or second franchise, or maybe it's an established brand already. But what are these common trends and mistakes that you've seen, decades doing this, making sure you understand it, play through it? What advice do you have out there?
So there's two things on that front. First of all is I think that capitalizing appropriately at the beginning of a project is paramount to allowing you to get through the early days, which are dynamic, unpredictable. I mean, a lot of times what we see in the restaurant industry, we talk about the honeymoon phase. So you're doing record numbers of sales, your team is brand new, and it's just kind of like Wild West. Everything's flying everywhere. Nobody's able to, like, what's the inventory? Nobody knows. It changed, like it's just kind of crazy. So, having a real understanding of what it's going to take at the beginning, and then understanding what ramp you think you need to get your arms around it, and that a lot of that is just getting advice from other people who've been in franchise organizations. Obviously, franchisors, we have to disclose all the information about investment and things like that, but there's a point at which we can't say, "But if I were you," like, we can just give them the facts.
Sure.
Um, so just being really intentional about capitalization. And then the second one is, I've seen this so many times, I don't know how to say it almost with a straight face. It's, "You know what? They have built this concept. They've proven that it works. They've done all the hard work. I think I'll just do it my way." Not
Oh,
understanding the power of
yeah,
franchising and what that
absolutely.
brings to it. Because while that might not be strictly a financial component, what ends up happening is all players in the concept get hurt by sort of that individualistic approach to a franchise concept. If you decide you want to increase your portions and make it look better, when they go to the location down the street owned by a different franchisee who's making items to spec, you know what? They feel like they got screwed. It never
Yep.
occurred to them that you overportioned, right? Or did you decide to change your recipe a little bit and now it doesn't taste like, you don't want to go into McDonald's. You want a Big Mac to be the same Big Mac every
100%.
single time you eat it, right? And so, well, like with the Big Biscuit, we want our biscuits and gravy to be the same at every location so that our guests know they can count on their tried and true beloved dishes. And so,
Absolutely.
as franchisees, we need to respect and understand that that consistency is just absolutely paramount to success.
No, I think that's perfect, because why fight the franchise, right? If you're getting into franchise, you're leveraging that brand. Don't try to mix it up. Don't try to change it. Don't make other franchisees look negatively as they're going, store to store. But I want to touch back on the first point real quick, and it's obviously capitalize appropriately. And is your opinion there that they are undercapitalizing? Oftentimes that they're looking at it from that standpoint.
If you look at, I have this opportunity to get into a business, like you're looking at, what do I need to do that, right? And you might be looking at debt financing, you might be looking at equity financing, but generally speaking, you don't go to a bank and say, I need 1 million, but go ahead and give me two, right? Like that's not anyone's approach. It's like, this is what I need. But making sure that while they're planning through the capitalization portion, that they either, you know that they've got, like, let's say you're building out a restaurant, right? Get the bid before you think you know what it costs to build it out, as opposed to just like, oh, well, my buddy told me that, or, I looked at the franchise disclosure document and it says this. those are guidelines. Those are based on actual experience, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the exact number of square
Sure.
feet or the exact, you know, metro area. And so, what is necessary there is it can be a very specific set of numbers, and just making sure that you're really thinking through that so that you don't run out of ramp.
I love that. I love that, and I think that's a great piece. Get more specific, do the homework, make sure you actually understand those numbers is something we could all use and learn from. So tell me, put on some forward-thinking glasses here, forward-looking glasses. That's what we do with glasses, look, not think. But tell me, one major financial or operational shift coming to restaurant franchising. Obviously, it's always undergoing a few, but we're in a time of massive changes across the entire world and economy, of course, but the hospitality industry particularly. What do you see kind of on the horizon? What are you getting ready for? What are you trying to help prepare for right now?
Well, honestly, that is such a loaded question.
Of course it is.
It
Welcome to the
seems like
cast.
such an innocent question, and it's like, really? Uh, so a couple different things. I think that, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention AI and technology.
Hmm.
What a huge
Mm,
piece coming at us. That creates opportunities in certain segments, right? Like quick serve and fast food
absolutely.
definitely can max that out. I was at the Restaurant 365, sorry to name drop, but at the conference with you, and one of my lunch mates was working in a casino operation, and they're using robots to deliver their food onto the floor, and I was like, that's so cool. I have a hard time getting my head around that, but they're able to, and then you see the robots who clean and things like that.
Of course.
For a full service restaurant, that's not it's not so easy to start to implement those types of things, but
Agreed.
it puts pressure on us because now full serve and quick serve have opportunities and options that we may not be able to avail ourselves of without changing our model pretty significantly. So how do we remain competitive in a place where certain segments of the market are really being able to be innovative while we sort of stay traditional? Like, I would say digital menu boards versus printed menus, right? On a digital menu board, I just go "Trrrr," and my prices are changed.
Sure.
Okay. Most people don't take pictures of digital menu boards and post them to like your Facebooks and your Instagrams. But how many times have you seen a printed menu posted? And so then people go, oh, it costs this much to go eat there. You walk in, the printed menus changed, the prices are different, and all of a sudden you're not sure what happened, but it's not quite the same value you're expecting, right?
Well, disconnect
So
from the guest, right?
yeah, I think that that's one of them. Another one is just we are always fighting the dynamic pricing climate. Sort of with today's like tariffs and like global climate, I would say that for me, when I look at how would I try to budget out the next 2 to 3 years, like I don't even know that we're going to be able to get equipment in the same pricing that we're getting now because if it's not domestically procured, you don't even know what your price is until it lands. And so that makes it, that's a very big challenge. So I think that we're going to have to get used to a new environment where things are a little less certain and a little bit more competitive.
I think that's a great piece. It is maybe the idea, and the question is so loaded because it's on that time horizon, right? It's actually that time horizon doesn't exist. We don't get to forecast out on that distance anymore if it's coming in from international. So I think that's awesome.
Right.
I love it, Alex. I'm going to switch gears on you, and I'm going to take us to questions that I like to ask everyone. And the first, and I'm going to say easiest, could be the most complicated depending how you view it, but any hospitality story, you've been in the industry for a while. It can be from an internal piece, it can be guest experience, but any hospitality horror stories that are worth sharing that listeners might enjoy.
Okay. Mm.
Oh, here we go.
I've been on the receiving end of so many of these um, that it almost confounds one. And I think that as a person in the hospitality industry, we are hypercritical. I mean, and so you try to remember, like, okay,
Or
you, they're packed. Like, you're not going to get the perfect level of service. But I did once go for breakfast with my daughter and her husband and my grandson. And we love a little brunch with a little, maybe adult beverage here and there. So we place our order for our bev. And then a few minutes later, we finally get her attention to come over and take our food order. We get our food, we never get our drinks. Oh, the bartender's busy. We're sitting by the bar. We can see the bartender's not doing anything, right? And I'm like, I just got lied to my face.
Yep. Yep.
So, Kirk, I still gave a good tip because
Sure.
that's who I am.
Yeah.
But I wrote like a one-page write-up on the ticket that said, the tip here is not indicative of the level of service I received, but rather my commitment to the restaurant industry and the people who serve it. I think maybe you're not cut out for this industry. I mean,
Oh,
it was probably very mean, but I
yeah.
just so upset. Our dishes sat in front of us for 5 minutes after we were, it was just like everything that could be bad
Yeah.
was bad.
Yeah.
And I am a very like glass half full, silver lining kind of
Sure.
person. Anyone who knows me, maybe you don't believe that, but in my heart, I really do. But I try to remember when I come away from that, in my role as a leader in the hospitality industry, what I try to keep very much in mind is every guest, no matter whether they're going into fast food, quick serve, full serve, fine dining, they want an experience that equals what they believe they're paying for it. So they want that perception of value. They want to feel like they matter. They want to feel, even if you're slammed, that you come up and go, I am so sorry. We are slammed. And it's flu season. So two of our servers, like give us an explanation. Tell us that you really are going to be there for us, but that it's going to be a little bit limited. Just give us that expectation of what's happening so that we know that you're not just putting us at the bottom as a consumer who is spending our hard-earned money. And we chose you over other options. We had other options. We came to you to spend money. So we want that experience that equals what we believe we're paying for it. And so, like I said, every time I have one of those experiences where I'm just like, are you thinking about going into accounting maybe?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
You've got the personality for it. Let's do this thing.
a place where you don't have to talk to people very
Yep.
often.
Yep.
But yeah, I try to remember that the
Yeah.
silver lining on that is that you get that great reminder.
I agree. I think, I mean, I've been in service. I, started when I was 16 and I've made those mistakes, but I think you aligned it with setting expectations. That goes so far with guests. You can just let them, hey guys, we are slammed, or hey, this is my first week and I'm still learning. I appreciate
I
the
have
patience.
no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to do my best, but please let me know. And, on the idea of leaving a one page, I think, feedback is always important. You left a tip, which is how she makes her living, he or she, I'm sorry, not to assume on it, but, and then the idea of leaving feedback, that's their choice at that point. Do they take that to heart? Do they try to improve and make a career and really go at this? Or, yeah, accounting's on the table, right? I mean, they can slide back in. So I love it. Easier potential question for you on that. Tell me, what's your favorite restaurant or brand out there right now? Cannot be your own, full disclosure. And what is it doing that makes it your favorite? What's it doing to stand out to you?
Wow. Okay. Well, I didn't know it couldn't be my own because I was definitely going to say my own. Um, so I will give a shout out to Jefferson's,
Sure.
the group that I just left, and they've got a little startup that we kind of conceptualized during COVID called Wing Stand. It's got very few locations, but it's basically the quick serve Jefferson's version. It's like a Jefferson's small, if you will.
Okay.
But the guy who's leading that, Michael Brown, he's the director of operations. And one of the things I love is his passion and his commitment to being really dynamic. So they do have the digital boards. They have the ability to turn on a dime and really react to guest sentiment, which they monitor all the time.
Awesome.
And so instead of like building it and going, good enough, they literally live it every single day and really just try to connect so much with guests, not just with like the service aspect, but flavor profiles, offerings. What potato should we offer? Should we offer a new one? Should we not? What about drinks? Like, so I kind of love the passion that's going on at their size and their scalability. So shout out to Wing Stand by Jefferson's.
All right. And that's Kansas City area?
It is. It
Okay.
is.
Okay. So if you were a listener in the area, go check it out. That sounds cool. And I agree. Anyone who's got the passion to it, especially at that scale where you can be dynamic, like go do it, go test things, go manipulate the menus a little bit. I love that. Tell me, we touched briefly on it. So you can punt this answer if you want, but I'm always curious from people in the space, industry trends. There are so many, always. One of the big ones right now is protein, right? You see every commercial for every hospitality brand, Starbucks to whoever, protein. But tell me industry trends, one that you believe in, one that you say, hey, we here at Big Biscuit are at least aware of it, making plans maybe. And then one you say, no, we're going to let that one pass. That's a fad, not a trend. But what do you see out there? And what are y'all taking actions on?
Well, so from our menu perspective, we are not trendy. So we commit to that.
Absolutely. And
We're-
that's I like
We're
that.
not trendy. So, so when I think about the trends in business or in restaurants, I'm generally looking at technology and finance. So, shout out to TipHaus. We literally just onboarded with you guys, and I have to tell you that cashless tips, obviously, that is not a trend. It's a direction, and it's a commitment, and it's risk mitigation, and it's efficiency and getting your servers off the clock, like we talked about earlier. But it's also sort of just saying we're ready to be part of the future. And when we talk to our servers about like, oh, we're going to change, we're not going to tip you out in cash, they all went, yeah, we do that at our other, like, it was so funny. We're bracing for this real like backlash, and they're all like, welcome to this decade. So I think that, there are things that could feel trendy when you don't have experience with them, but then when you get there, you realize it's just sort of the way we do business now. And like we talked about the robots, like we're not going to have robots delivering our food, because part of our culture is the human element, that human experience, the guest experience, which requires you to have that human. But man, you go to NRA and it's overwhelming to see how much technology is coming down the pipe. So I think that it's more about looking at what you can do in your segment or in your concept that utilizes technology but isn't maybe a guest facing thing.
It's driving the farthest, especially, for a group, and I love that y'all are unapologetically Big Biscuit, right? We're not trying to chase trends. We're not doing
No.
that. If, you could have had it for breakfast 100 years ago, it's on our menu kind of thing, right? And that's perfect. But then there are
gravy and grits, baby.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I love that. So with that, then I'm going to throw you my last one. And this is a full disclosure, a very another loaded question for you. But, whatever lens you want to view it through, I love hearing the different perspectives of operators and individuals in the industry. But what do you think is the greatest challenge, facing restaurants today? And is there an opportunity within that challenge?
Broad question, broad answer.
Love that. Love that.
Dynamic change.
Okay.
So if you've been in the restaurant industry since, let's say, 2018, you've lived through COVID, you've lived through everything you received on your truck was a sub, and it cost 3 times more. There was nobody who wanted to work, could work. Like the labor shortage was so intense. So we really had to retool how we do things. And I definitely think that commodity pricing, like we just talked about, not having the ability to shift on a dime with pricing. You've spent months investing in your pricing strategy and looking at your pricing trends and understanding what your margin needs to be in order to be successful, but also understanding what the market will bear, and that your consumer will only bear so much before you've priced them out, right? So writing that fine line, and then all of a sudden, beginning of 2025, eggs cost $8 million an egg. You're just like, after COVID, we were paying 2x a case for wings over at Jefferson's, and we had literally just printed menus. And everyone's like, what does the future hold? We don't, it's a very scary time. So, it's really that change of whether it's how do we keep our labor force? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep our labor costs down? And of course, we know that in many cases that's retention, creating a culture of retention and longevity, awarding that retention and longevity, because it is expensive to recruit,
100%.
train, and replace employees. So just making sure that you minimize the amount of moving variables within your organization so that when you do have to deal with that dynamic, like, guess what? Now this one thing that you sell the most of, it's going to cost you 3 times more and you can't reprint your menu. So figure it out. Weather the storm, hunker down, find another line item, be creative with how your servers are pitching things at the table and try to steer them to something
Yep.
that still
Yep.
has margin, you know? So it's change. It's definitely change because we can't see it coming, even though we say we see it coming, because
Sure.
change is inevitable,
Yep.
right? But which change are you going to deal with tomorrow?
I love that. And I love, I think broad question, but pretty specific answer, which is be prepared for change, right? Dynamic and being able to adjust is everything today. In all industries, not just ours, but certainly ours is impacted in the real world and on a faster timeline. And so I love that. There is no set it and forget it for 2 years, hit the next problem slowly. It is, on 80. If we're lucky, a monthly basis, more likely, we're looking weekly these days. What do we need?
We analyze numbers weekly. You
Yep.
got it,
Yep. I love it. Well, Alex, final question for you, and this should be the easiest one you get. But if people want to learn more about Big Biscuit or visit you, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, the Big Biscuit has, we just opened our 30th location. We are primarily, thank you. We're primarily in the Midwest. So we're Kansas City area, Lawrence, Topeka. We're in Joplin. We are in Fayetteville,
Nice.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City. We are in Joplin, Missouri. And if you want to know specifically like the addresses of those locations, you can always
You don't have those on the top of your head?
to bigbiscuit.com and check out our locations. So yeah, and I gotta tell you what, I really do think that we've got an amazing concept. So I hope that if anyone wants a great traditional breakfast, they come by and visit us.
I love it. And anyone listening, please go check them out and support. Amazing team. And Alex, I cannot thank you enough for joining me on the podcast today and sharing some unbelievable knowledge and wisdom with it. Thank you again.
Thanks for listening to Tipped Off, the podcast for the service industry. For more tools and insights, visit TipHaus.com.